Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome back to the Producer's Perspective Live. It has been exactly 1 month since Broadway shut down, and we are now on episode 20-something. And I think it's Monday today. I think it's Monday. You know, the upside about not really knowing what day it is in the midst of all this is that you can't get any Monday blues, right? No Monday blues. Who cares? It's all the days are the same. Welcome back. I'm very happy you're here. We have a very fun episode planned for you. But before we get to our superstar, actually, he really is a superstar, but we'll get to that. Before we get to our guest, I do want to say one thing. If you are on my Facebook page, if you're one of my followers or follow me on Instagram or Twitter, you may have noticed that I posted a tribute to my dad today, who unfortunately passed away Easter morning yesterday. After a battle with a stroke he had about 3 weeks ago in the midst of all this. And my dad was my world. He is the reason why I'm in the theater. He's the reason why I'm here. As I said in this Instagram post, my dad was an Indian doctor. So he immigrated here in the 60s. An Indian doctor, one of the very few Indian doctors who actually told his son, don't be a doctor. He used to literally drag me in his hand around with all of his rounds at the hospital. And the nurses would say, are you going to be a doctor like your dad? And he would be like, no, he's not going to do that. He's going to go into something more fun like the theater. And he would drag me to his show and got me involved. So he's the reason I'm here. And now he's up there. And yeah, I thought about taking the night off or canceling a week or doing all this stuff. But frankly, my dad would be so pissed off at me if I did that. He was a very special man, and he taught me how to work hard. And he also taught me that I should keep going no matter what. And he never wanted to get in the way of anything I did. He just supported me like crazy. And he wouldn't want me to stop doing anything. So I know he's up there right now, and he's probably, well, he was a little technologically challenged. So I don't know if he's figured out how to zoom into my Facebook page yet. But I know he's cheering me on and cheering all of you on, anyone out there to make theater. So this one's for you, Dad. Thank you so much for everything. Okay, and now that aside, let's get to the good stuff. So today we do have my good friend Jason Alexander on the live stream. So Jason, you of course know him from that little show that no one's ever heard of called Seinfeld. But what's amazing about Jason, he was a bona fide Broadway star before all that. Won a Tony Award for Jerome Robbins' Broadway. Merrily We Roll Along, The Rink, my personal favorite. Man, hearing him do that stuff. But then he went on to obviously superstardom in movies and television and all of it. So we're going to get to Jason in a minute. I think you'll be very interested to hear what he's been up to. He's also directing now. Like, that's the other thing. Like, you'd think I met him because I was going to put him in the show. No, I met him because he was going to direct the show I was involved with. Don't forget, we are here for the Actors Fund. So all do me a favor right now. There is a button very close to your screen that says share. So we will raise more money if there's more people on this sucker. So go hit that share button like 1,000 times. Just keep hitting share. Share with all your friends. Get it out there. Let's get some more people on there. They'll be entertained by Jason. And we'll raise some great money for the Actors Fund. We had a lot of fun last night with the Godspell cast, and we raised a good chunk of change. So we're trying to continue to do that. Keep up that momentum. Hit that tip jar if you can. Hope you're all staying safe, staying home. Dang it. By the end of this shutdown, I will get this hashtag right. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home. We are getting to it now. We've reached a plateau here in New York City. And actually, Cuomo said the worst is over. The worst is over. And he's talking about how we get back going again. It won't be as soon as we'd like, but we are going to get there. So stay safe, stay healthy, stay home until someone says you can get out there. Until then, let's bring on our guest today, all the way from Los Angeles. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Jason Alexander. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
You know, for a guy, a pale pasty, stuck in his apartment, New Yorker, you look very good.
It's the lighting. It's the lighting. I've literally ordered like the best lighting from Amazon that could get here. It took 4 weeks, but it finally figured it out. How are you?
Hey, my condolences. We have already spoken a little bit, but I got you. I got you.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. So you are in Los Angeles. What have you been up to? What have you been doing?
You mean prior to the end of the world?
Yeah, like, where were you?
The end of the world.
It really seems that way. Where were you when the virus hit the fan, as I like to say? Like, where was the moment?
I had done a 7-city speaking / comedy tour in Australia when the word was just coming over about this thing in Wuhan, China. And I remember it was so not on the radar in February that my partner and I would go do the show and we'd go out to dinner in whatever Chinatown was in whatever Australian city we were in. And we jokingly say, oh, we'll have the Wuhan chicken, please. You know, because it was like, it was over there. It wasn't, it just didn't make any sense. And I got home the very end of February, and you know, by 2 weeks later, our governor out here was going, shut it down, close it down, shut it down, and it all began. And it was a little surreal at first, as I'm sure it was for everybody. And we also probably all assumed, oh, it'll be a day or two, you know. I figure it's like a bad weather warning that it'll come and it'll pass. And
yeah,
but you know, I'm fortunate in so many ways. But my wife, Dana, is, you know, the earthquake was a big thing for her. So out here in LA, they always say, be prepared, the big one, it's coming. You got to be able to be on your own for 2 to 3 weeks without any. So she's like a prepper. We have toilet paper, we have food, we have cans, we have water supplies, we got a backup generator. So this is not a frightening situation for us. It's my children don't live in the house, but they're each 15 blocks in either direction. So, you know, they'll come over once a week and we sit in the backyard with masks and don't touch each other. And this is what passes for family life now. But it's, we're in my home and in my closest circle, we are all very blessed. Everybody's safe and healthy. And at least the people closest to me are not worried about how they're going to pay their rent this month, or, you know, can they afford to buy groceries next week? Everybody's okay. But you and I both know a whole bunch of people who are not okay. And I wake up every day frightened for them because I don't know that I know efforts are being made. I know everyone is working diligently and hard, but people I know are in trouble. You know, they're just in trouble, or they're very, very frightened. And I feel for them, and hopefully I'm there for them if they need. And together we get through it. You know, I'm delighted to hear New York is finally perhaps taken the turn and is on the way to flattening this thing. The numbers coming out of there were horrifying.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And Cuomo's been so good.
Yeah.
The worst is over. Now look, it's still going up just a touch, but the worst, it's still like he's always qualifying it, which is the way it's supposed to do. He's supposed to do it. So we're in good hands, thankfully. We're not out of the woods yet. We are getting there. We will get there. Now, what I have to ask, in Australia, were you doing your concert tour, or were you doing?
No, I have this really interesting tour that I was supposed to be touring the East Coast right now. I had a 7-city tour, part of a speaker series in Baltimore and Jersey and Philly and Pittsburgh and Boston, and that all went down because of COVID. But we just rescheduled for November. It's a kind of an interesting show, or at least it's interesting for me. It began its life as a Q&A show, a straight Q&A show. And then it became a Q&A with comedy, and then it became a Q&A with comedy and music. And it has evolved into a thing where we put topics up either in the program or we project them on a screen behind me. And the audience gets to pick and choose. Depending on what they pick, we get through 6, 7, 8, 9 of these things in a session. And we only talk about the things that are intriguing to them, the things they want to talk about. Some of them are funny, some of them are not, some of them are musical, some of them are not, and it's always different for me. I never know what they're going to pick, and it's been a lot of fun. So in Australia we did that, and Seinfeld is certainly one of the categories up on the screen, and invariably it comes up. So we do a nice little chunk of Seinfeld questions, and everyone gets to brim that out. And it's been great fun. It's an easy show to do, and it seems to be a crowd pleaser.
What I love is in your post Seinfeld life, you just seem to be doing, but you've come back to the theater doing more live entertainment stuff than ever before.
Well, I never wanted to leave it, Ken. I know I've got like half this sunshine in me. It's going to shift as we go. So I'm a living Godspell poster. My fantasies when I was a kid growing up in New Jersey, and I realized I would like to be an actor, it was all about the theater. It was all about doing stuff in New York and dreaming about getting to Broadway. I had no fantasies about film or television. And when all that lovely stuff started to happen, I never had any faith in it, so I thought, all right, I'll go to LA and I'll do this pilot, and I'm sure nothing will happen, and I'll come back and I'll get back to the theater. The glorious thing about the success of Seinfeld was it kind of was theater. Yeah, there were cameras there, but it was a live audience, and we did it like a play, and it wasn't glaringly different from anything I'd done in New York. But yeah, I find if I don't use my live performance muscles for a while, I start to doubt them, and I never want to doubt them. So I keep a foot somehow in the pool and come back to it as often as I can.
You said that when you went to, you never expected anything to happen of all this film and TV stuff. Do you think that actually helped with your success there? You're like, whatever, I'm just going to go out there and try this, or I'm going to do this stuff. I'm not pinning my hopes and dreams on it. So it helped.
Certainly helped with my success as a human being, because I never, and I still don't really kind of buy into this whole allure of show business. A lot of my friends are in the business, but they're not star names, and a lot of them are, crew members or writers, or so the glitz and glamour of Hollywood never struck me. I wasn't, even as a kid, I wasn't focused on film and focused in that way to go, I'm going to be a movie star, and I knew well by the time I was a teenager, yes, there's a glamour to being in the New York theater, but it ends at the stage door. Life as a stage actor doing 8 a week in New York, you're still taking out the trash and riding the subways and getting yelled at and spit at, and as you pass the bums on the street, and so it's just not a glamorous lifestyle. So so it kept me rooted, and it kept me healthy as all this other great stuff happened, and hopefully it helped my wife and I keep our kids on track as they were growing up. And but yeah, it's great. It's great to enjoy every project for the values that it has and for the people that you get to work with. But we're just telling stories. At the end of the day, we're just telling stories. There's nothing to get excited about here.
I love that idea of it ends at the stage door, because I've worked on so many shows, and I actually love to watch these folks come out and they're mobbed at the stage door. People are mobbed, and then they walk away, and they're not mobbed. They literally go down the subway. They're like, no one talks to them.
I ride the subway in New York. When I'm in New York, I actually ride the subway. If I walk down the street, I sometimes get stopped, If I ride the subway, nobody says boo to me. I think it's because they must be going, nah. But I know all my friends that work, in the theater, they're either commuting in on buses, or they're taking the PATH train, or they're getting around on the subways.
So one of the things that I loved about meeting you for the first time is that you were nothing like George, just nothing like it. I was like, this guy is actually one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And it's true. I mean, your insight not only into theater but into the world. So I want to ask you your perspective on, what do you think? How does this change entertainment in the future? Do you think audiences are going to rush back? How do you think they're going to gather in the future?
My instinct tells me people will want to rush back, but it will be mitigated by reality. So I think even my Well, my younger son, my two sons, they're so great. They're such great brothers, and they're very different people. My older son is very much an extrovert, and all this is so hard for him because he is fed by group energies, by being around people, and this isolation is really debilitating to him. My younger son, the introvert, goes, "Did something change?" Yeah. He spends a lot of time on his own, but even he is starting to crave real interaction, real society, real bonds with people being together in the same space. I think people are going to want to. We're all, thank you Netflix and HBO and every television outlet and for giving us something that we can all be amused by. The stories, I'm not kidding when I say we're just telling stories. That's what we do for a living. So the box is doing a great job of telling us stories. And some of them, like the Tiger King phenomena, again, we're all united in talking about singular stories that have sort of penetrated for us. But I think we're going to want to get together in real spaces, in human spaces like theaters, and watch movies together and watch theater together. How quickly we feel confident about, I'm 60 and I have mild asthma. So even if they say, all is well, and I go, well, wait, is there a vaccine? Is there a therapy for this? Because until there is, I have to, when I walk out into a group of people and somewhere in my head, there's going to be, am I okay? Am I at risk? Am I, So I do believe within the next 6 months to a year that I have great faith in science. There will be a vaccine for all this, and we'll all get our immunity. And then I think things will totally go back to normal. The other big factor being, especially in the world that you and I play in, what will the economics of live entertainment look like on the other side of this? Because our economy has been so devastated, people's individual incomes and their economic outlooks are so uncertain right now that the notion of disposable dollars for entertainment right now seems outlandish. How quickly that may change is anybody's guess. So I think the world of Broadway is going to be not what you and I experienced for quite some time, both in how the audience returns, how quickly they return, what the diversity and demographics of that audience are, and how much financial resources we have to work with and they have to work with. I think that may all be a brave new world for some time. But I think the minute they take off the chains and say, have at each other, we're all going to want to flock back together. And live performance is one of the best ways to do that.
Do you think they're going to be craving a different type of entertainment? Is it sitcoms? Do they become the thing to see in a way, or big musical comedies, or big slapstick, forget about your troubles?
Yeah, it's a great question. If I knew the answer. So I have a couple of projects from New York for the theater that I'm directing, and one of them is pretty far off. It's a musical I'm developing, but the other two are actually right now looking to attach casts and get a theater because they're both really viable for when New York opens up again. One of them is a really dark comedy, and one of them is a very silly light comedy. And the dark comedy, I think, was way ahead of the game coming into this pandemic. My guess, although we're pursuing them both equally, is I have a sneaking suspicion the silly, frothy comedy may jump ahead at the end of this, because I think if people are going to risk going back out and spending dollars for the theater, they're going to want to have a fun time rather than a profound time, or even being stirred by a play is probably not initially what they're going to want to experience. So I think musicals have a great shot. I think comedies have a great shot. But unless you have noticed something different from me, comedies have been few and far between in New York these days. Nobody's really writing them for the theater. Certainly no one seems to be producing them for the theater. so it'll be interesting to see if and how they come back. But I think sitcom is the thing that's sustaining everybody now. I don't know that people are going to want more of it on the other side. They if television right now is dramas and documentaries and silly comedies, there may be something that only theater provides, which is a true musical experience. I love the musicals for television, but they're not what we crave. They're not live musicals. A musical performance tends to be a live performance. I think people are going to crave that. I think those will do well. Outside of that, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think people know what films to tell. I'm sure there's going to be 507 pandemic stories ready to go in some sort of filmed entertainment. And it's a real coin toss as to, does anyone want to see these? Even if you have something amazing to say about what we've all been through it. I don't know that we're going to want to revisit it, at least not right away. So, and I also think a lot of what returns in entertainment is going to depend what happens in November. I could be wrong. Here's my guess. There are more Democrats and liberals going to the theater than conservatives and Republicans. If Democrats and liberals come into November and go, oh God, I don't know where they're going. I mean, it could really be a huge burden to carry from that point on. And I don't know how they'll react. So many things we don't know. It's going to be fascinating. As Mom said, live in interesting times, and we nailed that. So
tell me a little bit about this transition to, you mentioned directing, why you wanted to pursue this, another big challenge at this point in your life and your career, when you could sit back and choose projects. You went up and did, I know, I love you. You emailed me like, Ken, I'm doing the last 5 years up in Syracuse. And I was like, wait, what? So I love that you're doing all these different and unique things. So, but why? Like, what about directing made you want to go down this path now?
So even when I was a student in college, an acting student in college, I had professors that said, have you thought about directing? Because I tended to see stories and material from a macro perspective. So if I was going to be in a play, I would read the play, I would see what the play was about, I would see what my character was to that, macro storytelling. And then I'd kind of give you that very efficiently and very quickly. I was a director's dream because, I knew what they needed and I would show up and do that. But my acting teachers would say, the greatest actors see the entire piece through their character's eyes and nothing else. They're always looking for the thing that isn't there, the thing the writer doesn't know, the thing the director doesn't know. And I was less good at that than I was at the other. So I began directing right out of college. I began directing in college. I loved it. I loved the collaborativeness of it. And then when the theater was taken away during the Seinfeld years, and my kids were young, I'm going to get out of the sunlight a little bit. When my kids were little, even in the breaks from filmed stuff, 8 a week is the antithesis of a good parent schedule. Because every time your kids are coming in, you're going out. Weekends you're going out, nights you're going out, holidays you're going out, and that's when they come in. So we could afford, thank goodness to Mr. Seinfeld and company, to not have to make a living doing that. And I kept theater more or less at arm's length while my kids were little. But during that time, what did make sense was direct the thing. That's much less of a time commitment. And then you can step back and the piece goes on. So I began stepping it up there. When Seinfeld ended and then my follow-up series were not successful, there are more images of me as George out there than anything else I've done, even though I've been doing this for 40 years. And as a result of that, the kinds of roles I was being offered started to get really kind of not interesting. And the choice was, there were two other things other than acting that I got really excited about. One was teaching and one was directing. And the directing world kind of opened up. There were things I wanted to do. There were pieces that kind of sang to me or called to me. And I decided to start pushing that as hard as I could. And I started it actually in Seinfeld. I got into the Directors Guild doing an episode of Seinfeld, and then I did some more television. It took me a while to get back to theater where I actually know what I'm doing. I know jack squat about what to do with a camera, but I have a pretty good idea of what to do in theater. So it just took a while. And the projects that came my way as a director for now, and not always, and hopefully not forever, but right now in the recent past, the directing projects were much more interesting and engaging than any of the acting offers, and so you go with that. But for me, a career is you just keep moving. You don't get stuck. You if something runs cold or goes dry, you go, well, what about this? And that's what in this downtime, I've been talking to a lot of theater students who, feel like everything's just been ripped away from them right now. Their graduation, and they're going to New York to meet agents and all the upfronts and all that kind of stuff. So you talk to them and you go, guys, we're telling stories right now. You should be finding what stories you want to tell. I go, there are things about producing that are you really learned skills, but basically at the bottom end of the producing scale, it's finding stories you want to tell and putting the environment and the people together to tell those stories. You should be doing that right now. Go get your directors, your writers, your actors, find a guy who knows how to run a budget and start building your companies and figuring out what you want to do. So I couldn't be telling that to students and then sit like a bump on a log going, oh, I hope somebody casts me. And so you just keep doing things, and you look back after a while and you go, oh, I did a bunch of cool stuff.
I love it. This is why we get along, because I preach the same thing to everyone. You got to be creating your own thing and putting it out there, and it's the quickest way to big success. Let's take some of these questions here. Oh, here's a fun one. Throw that one up there, Mary. Throw that one up there. It's our one of our favorite viewers, Drew. If you were producing Jason Alexander the musical, who would write it, direct it, and sing in it, and would it be a comedy?
Well, now that's a very good question, Drew. Okay, so if I were producing Jason Alexander, he's probably talking to you about it. You're the producer, but
and we're giving it to you.
I would like to believe that it would be a musical because I've been singing longer than I've been talking. So I would like to believe my life had the sophistication to attract a Stephen Sondheim. I would like to believe that. I would like to believe that it has anthems in it that Pasek and Paul could dig into. I would like to believe that it's quirky enough that Jason Robert Brown could make a couple of contributions. And I got into theater and acting because of Pippin. So if Stephen Schwartz is not involved, something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. So if I can create a collaboration between those four individuals and teams, that would be fantastic. To play me, and it also depends now, is the Jason Alexander the musical based on the Jason Alexander everybody thinks they see and know, or the one that my family and friends think they see?
The real guy, because this is what
real guy.
Real guy.
If it's the real guy, I would love to see, who'd be a great me? Alexander Gemignani.
Oh,
Great me, or Danny Burston, who, thank God, he is out of. Yeah. I just read a wonderful piece with Danny, and I send him love, and I send Rebecca love as well. Danny would play me exquisite. He'd be a better me than me, is my fear.
That's amazing. Let's go to another question from Wesley. It looks like an aspiring writer here. Wesley Stuckey asks, Mary, throw that up. We all know you as a funny man and as someone who has worked with many of the funniest around. Do you have any tips for an aspiring writer or actor on how to interject the right amount of funny in a scene? How do you be funny, Jason? Tell us all. Teach us.
So here's the truth about me and funny. When I went to college, I didn't think of myself as funny at all. And I didn't think that my life or career would be centered around comedy. I was inspired by great dramatic musical and non-musical actors. And I was thinking more of a classical dramatic career. In my sophomore year of college, a professor of mine by the name of James Spruill, who is no longer with us, pulled me into his office. He's a very large, basso African-American man. And he said, I know that your heart and soul is Hamlet, and you would be a profound Hamlet, but you will never play Hamlet. So you best get good at Falstaff. And that was, so what Jim Spruill did for me that I was not able to do is go, you're 5 feet, 5 inches tall, you're 30 pounds overweight, and you're already going bald. Think comedy. And he was right, and I bless him every day. The right amount of comedy in a scene. So some of my favorite writing right now comes from a woman named Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Everybody has heard of her. She is a phenomenon because she writes in so many genres and so dramatically. Her pieces are so beautifully crafted, between Fleabag and Killing Eve and Run, and I know she's working on the new James Bond script. I mean, she attacks every genre, but what she finds is this essential. In drama, there's great conflict, people really working against each other at enormous odds. When I was doing Seinfeld, nothing that happened to George and nothing George did was funny to him. To him, it was all life and death serious. And every now and then, someone could hold the mirror up to him, and George was savvy enough to go, I look like an idiot. And he had a small ability, as Larry David does, who I was using as my role model, to laugh at himself. But if you allow your characters, either them or the people around them, to see the silliness in how much we lose our minds for what we think is desperately important. If everything is desperately important and you don't have somebody go, but is it? Or aren't you a little over the top right now? Then nothing is desperately important. Because to everyone, everything they need in that moment is desperately important, So what you may want to do if you're a writer is to look for what is tragically funny about your character. What is part of when we talk about what makes for great storytelling is the character can't just get what they want. There's an obstacle. And if the obstacle they have to overcome reflects some deep inability or character flaw in them, you have great chemistry for a comedy right there. So if you're a hitman who has flashbacks of horrible things he's done, and he can't sleep at night because he's haunted, it sounds incredibly dark. But that's what Barry is all about. That's right. Why Barry is such a great comedy. Right. These horrific flashbacks of what he has done and how it haunts him, and how he goes to the theater to stop being Barry. He wants to be an actor so he doesn't have to be Barry anymore. Incredibly funny. Comedy is sitting all around the darkness. Mm-hmm. And all you have to do is just go, why can't my character get there? What can I give them that is fun, that keeps them from getting what they want? And how much are they self-aware, or how many people around them are self-aware? And that's all it is. If they work and speak and act from their honest point of view, you should be able to get a perfectly balanced sense of humor into your dramatic writing. Said the non-writer.
Yeah. We'll take one more question. Oh, I'm very interested in this one. Being a super fan of the show, maybe you can give us some spoilers here. Skip asked, what's next for Jason on the marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
Well, rumor has it. I will say this: Amy Levinson, when I finished shooting the 2 episodes I did, she went, "Did you have fun? Would you be interested in coming back?" And I went, "Yes, I would, as a matter of fact." So they had called before all this went away to say, generally, what's your availability for the summer? And I gave them my windows, and I think she certainly had set up my character and Tony Shalhoub's character for an expansion. He ended the season by writing about me and a theater piece that never got seen because my character had been blacklisted during the McCarthy era. And I believe, if I'm not confusing my dramas, that Tony's character ended the season now being some sort of critic, potentially for the Village Voice. So I think there is some possibility that he's going to stay involved in my career or lack of it, and that I may make some more appearances. But all of this happened, and all the television production went down before she called back and said, "You're in 4 episodes, and here are the dates." So I don't know officially anything, but I've got my fingers crossed. That was one of the most completely satisfying, delicious experiences I've had. That show is such a happy show. Everybody on it is having the time of their lives. The material is so good, and you come on as a guest, and you're immediately family. It was just, I loved it. So if nominated, I will run. If elected, I will serve.
Well, we look forward to seeing you on that show. I look forward to seeing you in person when all this shit is over. Thank you so much for being here and for inspiring and educating us all. It's been a
my
treat.
pleasure, my friend. You
All
take
right.
care, and again, my condolences, and I will see you on the other side of all this.
Yes, my friend. See
All
you.
right. Take care. You're welcome.
Jason Alexander, everybody. I told you, nothing like George. Nothing like George. One of the smartest and most insightful guys I know about this business, how to make it, how to perform it, how to direct it, all of it. He does it all. That was Jason. Hope you enjoyed. Tomorrow night, show everyone who we got tomorrow night there, Mary. Bring it up. Kathleen Marshall, director, choreographer, Kathleen Marshall. I mean, sometimes I don't know who's next, to be honest. It's like mind-blowing to me, the people that keep showing up for this thing. Kathleen is here tomorrow. Don't forget, we're raising money for the Actors Fund. If you enjoyed Jason, if you're enjoying this, just give a little. Give a little if you can. Don't forget to tell all your friends to support the Actors Fund. Lastly, something to make you smile. Something to make you smile. We're going to go off the air with something from Jason. Jason actually just this past weekend hosted a virtual Seder with a lot of big stars in it. Look at that. Singing and dancing, the whole bit. We had, look at that, Billy Porter up there. We had Dan Levy up there. Adina's up there. I mean, come on. So go to theproducersperspective.com/smile and go to this virtual Seder with Jason Alexander. They raised like $2 million. We're trying to get there. We're not going to get there, but it's Jason Alexander. Come on. But go watch it. Do give a little there if you can as well. Thank you so much for watching. Another big shout out to my dad. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll do everything I can to make you proud, my friend, not only with this, but with everything I do. Thanks to you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow with Kathleen Marshall. Bye-bye.